At my own retirement party, surrounded by balloons my daughter hung with her own hands and a cake she picked out herself, my son-in-law leaned across the table, lowered his voice like we were just two reasonable men talking business, and asked me about my house. The house I had already sold 3 months earlier without telling either of them. That single sentence is where this story really begins. But to understand why I sold it, why I said nothing, and why I don't regret a second of it, you need to go back further. Back to a kitchen in Westerville, Ohio, and 62 years of learning exactly what people mean when they say they love you. My name is Robert Hale. I spent 34 years as a civil engineer with the city of Columbus. I started as a surveyor's assistant fresh out of Ohio State with $40 in my checking account and a pair of boots that let the rain in every time it stormed. I retired as Deputy Director of Infrastructure Planning. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you because the story of how I got there, the years of early mornings, the decades of quiet discipline, the slow, patient climb is exactly what my daughter and her husband decided they were entitled to. My wife Joanne passed 6 years ago. Breast cancer, caught late, gone in 14 months. We had 31 years together. She taught kindergarten. She used to leave little sticky notes in my lunch bag, silly things, jokes, a heart drawn in blue pen. She thought I never noticed that she always gave me the bigger half of whatever we were splitting, a sandwich, a dessert, the last piece of pie. I noticed every single time. I just never told her, because some things you don't need to say out loud for them to matter. After she was gone, it was just me and our daughter Lily, and for a while that felt like enough. Lily lived 40 minutes away in Gahanna. She called on Sundays, like clockwork. She brought the grandkids over on holidays. She seemed like her mother's daughter, warm and present and real. Then she married Damon Schaefer. And slowly, without me even noticing it happening in real time, everything started to shift. I want to be fair about Damon because fairness has always mattered to me, even now, even after everything. He wasn't a bad man in the obvious ways. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't loud. He was the other kind of dangerous, the quiet, patient kind, the kind who smiles at you while he's quietly calculating what you're worth to him. He sold commercial insurance, and he was good at it because he had a gift, a genuine talent for making you feel like he was doing you a favor by taking something from you. The first time I truly saw who Damon was, it was about 2 years after the wedding. Lily called me on a Tuesday, which was unusual for her, and said they were having trouble with the mortgage. The interest rate had adjusted. Could I help? Just a bridge loan, just until Damon's commission cycle caught up. I wrote them a check for $11,000 that same week. There was no repayment schedule because it felt wrong, almost insulting, to draw up a contract with my own daughter. That was my first mistake. I just didn't know it yet. Over the next 3 years, the calls kept coming, each one reasonable on its own, each one easy to justify in isolation. A new roof, braces for Maxon, my grandson, 12 years old now, with a gap-toothed smile I would genuinely die for. Preschool tuition for my granddaughter Bree, a transmission for Lily's car, even funeral expenses for Damon's mother, though I later found out his brother had already covered most of it quietly on his own. I wasn't keeping an official ledger, but if I had been, it would have shown somewhere around $64,000 over about 5 years. Not $1 repaid, not one conversation about repayment, just a quiet expectation and my quiet, obedient compliance. I told myself this was love. that this is simply what fathers do for their children, that Joanne would have done the exact same thing without a second thought. But here's the thing about the stories you tell yourself just to get through another ordinary day. You get so good at telling them, so practiced, so fluent, that eventually you stop hearing the truth sitting right underneath. And the truth, the one I wasn't ready to face yet, was this. I had slowly, quietly turned into an ATM with a beating heart. Lily stopped asking how I was doing. She stopped coming by just to sit with me on the back porch in the evenings, the way we used to after Joanne died, back when grief was still fresh enough that neither of us needed words. And Damon started calling me the old man. Not to my face, of course. I overheard it once, standing in my own driveway on an ordinary Tuesday evening, the kitchen window cracked open behind me, Damon on the phone with someone I couldn't identify saying, "We just need to keep the old man feeling useful. You know how he gets." I remember standing there for a long moment, keys still in my hand, the porch light flickering slightly the way it always did. I went back inside, finished the dinner dishes, dried them, put them away, and didn't say a single word to anyone. That happened 3 years before my retirement party. And in those 3 years, quietly, without telling a soul, I started doing something nobody in my family knew about. I began meeting with a financial advisor named Patricia Chen. She goes by Pat. She has close-cropped silver hair, reading glasses she was constantly misplacing, usually pushed up on her head while she searched the desk for them, and a way of talking about money that made it feel like she was talking about something much bigger than money, which, as it turns out, she was. I told her everything. The loans that were never really loans, the quiet expectation sitting behind every single phone call, the comment I'd overheard in my own driveway that I hadn't repeated to another living person. Pat listened without interrupting me once, which I appreciated more than she probably realized. Then she set down her pen, looked at me directly and asked me a question nobody had asked me in years. "Robert, what do you want the rest of your life to look like?" I sat with that question for 3 full weeks before I went back to her office with an answer. And the answer, when it finally came, was simple. I wanted to travel. Joanne and I had started a list on a paper napkin at a diner back in 1987, back when we were young and broke and certain we had all the time in the world. Portugal, Nova Scotia, the Colorado Rockies in October. I wanted to wake up in the morning without that low, constant hum of dread, wondering what Tuesday's phone call was going to cost me this time. I wanted my life, after 62 years of building it for other people, to finally belong to me. So Pat and I restructured everything, piece by piece, over months of careful planning. I set up a revocable living trust. My house, a 3-bedroom colonial in Westerville that I had owned outright since 2019, went into that trust. My investment accounts were reorganized entirely, and a meaningful portion of my estate was designated to go to the Columbus Community Foundation, a local non-profit that funds arts education in public schools, the exact kind of program Joanne had volunteered with every single summer of her life, packing supplies into the trunk of her car every June, like clockwork. I didn't cut Lily out. I want to be completely clear about that part, because it would be easy to hear a story like this and assume it was built entirely on revenge. It wasn't. The plan was never to punish her, or exile her, or make her suffer for choices that were largely Damon's to begin with. The plan was to protect what I had spent a lifetime building, so that I could actually live inside it while I still had years left to enjoy, and so that when I was eventually gone, What remained would go exactly where I decided it should go, not wherever gravity and quiet assumption happened to carry it. My attorney, Charles Webb, has an office on High Street and a handshake like a closing argument. He had handled my estate planning for years. He knew Joanne well. He was there at her funeral, standing quietly near the back. The day I signed everything, every last page, he looked up at me over his glasses and said, "You understand, this is going to change things, Robert." "I know," I said. "You ready for that?" "I've been ready for 3 years." The retirement party itself was Lily's idea. She called it a celebration, and I believed her completely. I believed the excitement in her voice on the phone, the string of texts about decorations, whether I wanted sheet cake or something tiered and fancy. I believed it even when Damon emailed me. Emailed, mind you, not called, asking if we could talk about the future at some point during the party. I told him sure, that sounded fine, not thinking much of it at the time. We held it at a rented event room inside a hotel in Dublin, Ohio. About 60 people came, old colleagues from the city I'd worked alongside for decades. A couple of neighbors, my friend Harold from Thursday Morning Poker, sitting quietly in the corner with a plate of shrimp cocktail balanced on his knee, watching the whole room the way Harold always watches a room, like a man who's already 3 moves ahead of everyone else in it. I sat near the front, shook a lot of hands, accepted a lot of toasts, ate chicken that was perfectly fine, nothing memorable, and waited, because some part of me already knew something was coming. Damon gave a speech, polished, rehearsed, exactly what you'd expect from a man who sells things professionally for a living. He thanked me for my service to the community. He called me an example to everyone in the room. He made a joke about me finally having time to fix my gutters, and people laughed politely. Then Lily stood up. She said she loved me. She said she was grateful for everything I had done for her and for the kids over the years. And then she said something I have turned over in my mind more times than I could possibly count since that night. She said she hoped we could all support each other going forward, because family means showing up for one another in real, practical ways. I recognized that phrasing the instant it left her mouth. Damon had clearly written part of that speech for her. She sat back down to warm applause, and that's exactly when Damon leaned across the table toward me, quiet and casual, like we were just 2 reasonable men discussing simple logistics over coffee. "So, Robert, the house. We've been thinking, with the kids getting older and our place getting a little tight, maybe there's a path where we could—" "Damon," I said. He stopped mid-sentence. "I sold the house." I genuinely wish you could have seen the look that crossed his face in that moment. I'm not a man who takes pleasure in other people's pain. I've lived a quiet, careful life, built specifically on not being that kind of man. But I won't pretend, sitting here now, that I didn't feel something watching that expression move across his face in slow motion. Confusion first, then a quick, visible recalculation. Then that very specific look of a man realizing a door he thought he was already halfway through has just been sealed shut from the other side, permanently. "You what?" Lily said, her voice cracking slightly. "I sold the house. Closed back in March. I've been renting a 2-bedroom apartment over in Clintonville, walking distance from that park I've always loved." "When did you—" "I didn't even know." "I've also restructured my investments," I said, keeping my voice level, calm, my hands flat on the table in front of me. "I've set up a charitable trust in your mother's name through the Columbus Community Foundation. A meaningful portion of the estate will go there when I'm gone." "I've left you something, Lily, something real, just not what Damon was about to ask me for." The silence that followed felt like it had actual physical weight to it. Across the room, Harold had stopped eating his shrimp entirely, fork frozen halfway to his mouth. He was watching us now with the full, focused attention of a man who has lived long enough to recognize exactly when history is quietly turning a corner in front of him. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, I don't, I just wanted—" "I know what you wanted," I said. Not harshly. I said it the way you finally say something you've been carrying alone for years, setting it down gently at last, because the weight of it had always belonged to me, never to her. "I know what you both wanted, and I love you. I love those kids more than anything else in this world except your mother. But I'm 62 years old, and I have a list written on a napkin from 1987, and I am going to go live the rest of my life from it, starting now." Damon pushed his chair back from the table. He didn't say another word to me for the rest of that night. On the drive home to my new apartment with the good afternoon light and the kitchen window overlooking a quiet, tree-lined street, I called Harold. He picked up before the first ring had even finished. "I saw that," he said. "How was the shrimp?" "Outstanding. You doing okay?" I thought about it for a second. The May night air was cool coming through the cracked window, and somewhere, out in the darkness, a dog was barking at something it clearly couldn't reach. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. I actually am. The calls started 4 days later. Not from Lily at first, but from Damon, which tells you everything you need to know about who was really steering that particular ship the whole time. He called twice on a Thursday morning, and I let both go straight to voicemail. His messages were careful, measured, the voice of a man who sells things for a living and knows exactly how to modulate his tone for maximum effect. He said he thought there had been a misunderstanding. He said he and Lily just wanted to clear the air between us. He never once specified what "it" actually was, not in either message. Lily called Friday evening, and that one I picked up. She cried. Real tears, not performed ones. I know my own daughter, and I know the difference between the two. She said she was sorry. She said she hadn't fully known what Damon was planning to say that night at the party, and I believe that's at least partly true, the way we often half know things about the people we love and quietly agree, without ever discussing it, never to look at too closely. "Daddy," she said. She hadn't called me that in probably 10 years. "I don't care about the house, I just want things to be okay between us." "Things can be okay between us," I told her. "They can be better than okay. But they have to be different now. You understand that?" A long pause on the line, then quietly, "Yeah, I do. I never wanted to exile my daughter from my life. I want that understood clearly. I was only ever trying to finally have one worth living." Over the following weeks, Charles received 2 separate calls from an attorney Damon had apparently gone out and hired, someone raising quiet, pointed questions about the timeline of the trust, whether decisions made during my final years of employment were consistent with full mental capacity. You understand exactly what that implication was meant to suggest. Charles handled it the way Charles handles everything, calmly and thoroughly. He provided a letter from my physician along with nearly 3 years of documented correspondence, showing a consistent, deliberate, carefully reasoned series of decisions made by a man who knew precisely what he was doing every step of the way. The attorney never called again after that. I was in Lisbon when I finally found out it was over, sitting at a small cafe near the waterfront, eating a pastel de nata, watching the river move slowly past in the afternoon light. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A text from Charles. All quiet. Enjoy your trip. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding and ordered another coffee. Since then, I've checked off 4 places from that old napkin. Portugal, the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which Joanne always insisted on calling the real beach. Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in September, which turned out to be everything I had hoped it would be and more. And just 2 weeks ago, I came back from Prince Edward Island in Nova Scotia. I liked it even more than I expected, honestly, mostly because nobody there was trying to sell me anything at all. This October, Harold and I are heading out to the Colorado Rockies together. He's 70 years old, has a bad knee that gives him trouble on stairs, and absolutely refuses to adjust his expectations accordingly, which I find deeply, quietly admirable. Things with Lily are better now. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely better, which is the only kind of better that actually counts for anything. She came to my apartment in August unannounced, and we sat together at the kitchen table, and she cried, and I made coffee, and we talked about her mother for the first time in years. Really talked, the way we used to, before Damon's voice started filling up every available space in the room between us. She hasn't asked me about money once since that night at the party. Damon and I are polite to each other at family gatherings now. We will probably always be exactly that polite, and never anything more than that, and I have genuinely made my peace with it. Last Sunday, my grandson Maxon showed me a drawing he'd made of a rocket ship and asked if I thought it looked realistic. I told him that with the right education, absolutely anything was possible, and I meant every single word of it. He ran off grinning to go show his sister immediately, and I sat there in my daughter's living room afterward, feeling something I hadn't felt in a very long time, like a man who had finally, after all these years, gotten something right. I don't have some tidy lesson wrapped up neatly for you here, because life rarely arranges itself that way. But if you ask me what 62 years on this earth has actually taught me, I would tell you this. The people who truly love you don't need you to be useful to them. They just need you to be there. And the people who need you to be useful will call it love. And the saddest part of all is that they'll usually believe it themselves, completely and sincerely. I still have that napkin. It sits in the top drawer of my dresser, right where I can find it. Joanne's handwriting is on one side, mine is on the other. There are 3 items left on it, and for the first time in years, I know exactly how I'm going to spend the rest of my life crossing them off, one by one. If this story moved you, don't scroll away just yet. Hit like, drop a comment, and tell me what you would have done in Robert's place, and subscribe to Aftermath Tales so you never miss the next story like this one. Your support keeps these stories alive, so if you've got a moment, consider sharing this with someone who needs to hear it today.